Hey guys, let's talk about how to do the assignment called Letter to Miss D's Future Students. Click on the assignment and click on the Google Doc. So, there are 3 parts. The first part says, what are the 3 most important skills or ideas you learned from writing your story? So, anytime you see the red box, this is an example. So one example of something I learned was how to write with a lot of sensory details. You can use this one. If you do, you'll need to think of 2 more. But you need to think of 3 things you learned in the class. So you might think, I learned how to use capitalization in English, right? I learned how to, if I'm thinking about writing the story, I might say, write a beginning, middle, and end to my story. A third thing I learned, I could say, I can write even something pretty basic. I can write 2 or 3 or many paragraphs in English without a translator, like Google Translate. It doesn't have to be those 3 things. It can be 3 totally different things, but it should be 3 things you learned from the class. Okay? Next is the if, then, so. This looks pretty complicated, but it's not. It says use the if, then, so chart to explain why the skills you learned the skills you listed up here will help Miss D's future students. So, why will those skills help my students next year? Okay, so in my example, if Miss D's students learn to write with a lot of sensory details, I took that from my example, then readers will be able to imagine the sights, sounds, smells, and tastes of the story better. This part is like the definition of sensory details. So I'm explaining how will it help? What can they do? So, why should they learn how to write with sensory details? Miss D's future students should plan to learn how to use sensory details to make their writing stronger. If their writing has sight, sound, smell, taste, it's more interesting, right? So it will make the writing stronger. So you're going to go through and do each thing. So in one of my examples, we said, if Miss D's students learn to write many paragraphs in English. Okay, I took that from my example up here. Then, so if they learn how to write a lot in English, then what they can do, then the students will be able to write longer in English for things like essays, right? If you can write a lot in English, then you can write an essay. So, Miss D's future students should learn how to write a lot in English because it will help them pass their classes and their exams. So I took my examples from up top, and then I just explained them and why they will be helpful. Okay? The next part is the most important part. Here, you're going to write a letter to my students next year. I haven't met them yet. I don't know who they are. But I want you guys to tell the students about what you learned from writing a book and explain why learning the skills are important. So why was learning all of this important? Here's my example letter. Dear Miss D's future class, hello. I'm writing to tell you about what you will learn in Miss D's class this year. In this class, you will write stories that get published in a book. I learned many things from this process. These skills will be important for you too. First, you will learn how to write with a lot of sensory details. Oh, so I used that one. Sensory details are things like taste, touch, sight, smell, and hearing. If you learn to write with a lot of sensory details, then the reader will be able to imagine the story better. They will be more interested in reading your story. Next, you will learn how to revise your story. Revision helps your story make sense. So in this case, one of the things that I learned was how to revise. Okay, como revisar. You can add or change details. You can also delete parts of your story that don't make sense. If you learn to revise, then you will be able to improve many different types of writing. So I probably took that sentence from here. I just took it and I put it in. So, it is important for you to learn how to revise because you can use this skill for the rest of your life. I hope that you are excited for the new school year. Thank you for taking the time to read my letter. Sincerely, Miss D. So that is an example. You are going to write a letter about the 3 things that are important that you learned, and these are some of the words you can use. Notice that I underlined them so that you can see how I used them. Next, you have a challenge where you can write your letter again in your language, and then you need to do the reflection. That is mandatory. You have to do it. So, I hope this helps. Don't stress. Just think of 3 things you learned how to do in my class, and you should be good. Okay? Bye.